What's your creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? 1985. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. There was a small sliver of light coming in through the window from a street light, so the room and bed were dimly visible. Our black Pomeranian was at the end of the bed asleep. I dreamt that I woke up, reached down to pet him, and he turned into a glossy black bivalve oyster thing which opened up to reveal rows of gleaming glass teeth. I woke up to my ex backpedaling up the bed over the pillows towards the wall. I asked what's wrong. She said, "What is that shiny black clam thing with the teeth at the end of the bed? Where's the dog?" We had had the same nightmare at the same time. This still gives me a chill. Sorry that your dog was haunted. That's actually a requirement for Pomeranians. Pomeralians. I once clocked out of work at 6 p.m, like I always did at the time, and began my hour-long train ride home. After I had found a seat, I went to sleep and woke up just before my station. From the station, it is a short bus journey, 10-15 minutes, to reach home. During the entire journey, I didn't use my phone and I don't wear a watch, so I didn't really notice the time anywhere. When I reached home, my family surprised me with "You're home early. Everything alright?" I look at the wall clock and it is about to be 6 p.m. I was too shocked to understand what happened. Checked other watches, cell phones, etc., and the time is absolutely right. A few days later, the admin emailed us the timesheets for the month. Times clocking in and out, and every single days for me was around the same 6 p.m. So it certainly wasn't me having left work earlier. To this date, I haven't figured out how I gained between 60-90 minutes that day. Someone else is trying to figure out how they lost 60-90 minutes. I remember reading somewhere, Alvin Schwartz, maybe, a short story about that, many years ago. I thought it was so freaking cool and eerie. A guy receives a phone call from a man he doesn't recognize. The caller asks if he may have a minute of the guy's time, and the guy says sure. The caller thanks the man and hangs up. Just then the guy felt a little older. Things like this make me want to just gather all these stories and see if it all happened the same day. I was driving about 50 miles per hour, and a car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact, and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rear view, just about to pull out. You died on the spot and your mind is living an alternate timeline, aka quantum immortality. Yep, that's similar to what a lot of people have reported. Almost immediately before a fatal car accident, then boom, it's like the event was a hallucination. Missing vehicles, different weather, different spot on the road, etc. And afterwards a feeling like things have shifted. I was driving during a snowstorm when a police car started driving next to me, lights on, no sirens. I looked at the officers, but they didn't look at me. They had a weird look on their face. Something was off. They accelerated just a little to pass me and then completely disappeared. I drove maybe 15 minutes on the road without seeing them anywhere. They couldn't have gone really far. The road's conditions were terrible. I was creeped out for a long time. As someone who just watched all the Final Destination movies, I can confidently say that you're going to die. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason, and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused, but my dog looked completely fine. For your information, I don't drink or do drugs. I'm still pretty young. 6 blocks, that's freaky. If it was just a few meters I probably would chop it up to not paying attention or something, but that's intense. I had just pulled into the parking lot of where I worked and was walking towards the building. It was like 3 in the afternoon, broad daylight. All of a sudden, I heard an ambulance's siren start sounding. Naturally, I looked down the road to try and see the ambulance. I see it approaching and decided to watch it for a bit. It was quickly getting closer, and it was about to pass right by me. However, there was a large SUV waiting to turn out of the parking lot and onto the road, blocking a few meters of the road from my view. The ambulance passed behind the SUV. probably about 50 feet away from me at most, and I vividly remember the siren becoming completely silent in that instant. The ambulance had vanished entirely as it passed behind that SUV. I was so confused. The road did not have many cars on it at the time, and it was broad daylight. I did a triple take and made sure that I didn't just miss it. I had a clear view of the road going both directions, and there was no more ambulance to be seen. No more siren either. I walked up and down the road, trying to find it for a solid minute. But nope, it was gone. I was well rested, not on drugs, and I didn't have a history of hallucinations. It seems dismissible, but I was completely aware of what happened, and I can't explain it to this day. As someone who used to have such hallucinations, security footage helps a great deal. Also, a pet is really useful. If they aren't responding, I could relax. Pets help so much with this sort of thing at home. Your username. I haven't had hallucinations in a good while, but yes. My cat in the room with me has been the best help with that. If she doesn't care, I shouldn't. I used to have terrible sleep paralysis. Thankfully it hasn't happened in about a year now. I woke up once to fairy demon things hovering just above my bed and glowing, which normally I would have stayed somewhat calm until they left. But I also visualized my cat hissing at them with her ears flat back. Really messed with me that my mind did that to me. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet, and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, hey, this one is real, don't lose it. This one is really lovely. I'm sorry for your loss. I hope finding these things brought back some wonderful memories. I've told this story before and could go into a ton of detail, but here's the short version. I am 100% sure I vividly remember a dog that apparently doesn't exist. When I was 16, we lived on the other side of the province, and my uncle had this little Jack Russell named Crew. Crew went missing for several months and then turned up at a humane society over an hour away, and we were all shocked this little dog has made it so far. Anyway, that was almost 20 years ago, and the other day I was talking to my parents and was like, you know, whenever I hear about Jack Russells I think about Crew and that stunt he pulled, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Insisted my uncle had never had such a dog. I must have dreamed it, etc. Honestly, anyone else who would have remembered this dog has been dead for a long time, and I don't even have any pictures of my uncle. I have absolutely no way to prove this dog existed, but I'm sure that he did. They may have just forgotten. My parents are like this as well. Not that long ago I was telling them about a letter I had written to my dad while he was away a few years ago. They both insisted I must have dreamt it, but I found it not long after. Sometimes people can be forgetful. It doesn't necessarily mean Crew didn't exist. Very true. It was a chaotic time. My uncle passed away very unexpectedly shortly before we moved, and everything felt like a whirlwind. I still wish I could prove or disprove the existence of this dog, because I remember him so vividly and my family does not. Not even my brothers, though they were much younger and don't remember much about that time at all. I remember a trip my family took that never happened. I wrote about it in elementary school and my mum was so confused and told me I must have dreamt it. I'm 29 and still vividly remember walking through the field to this cool little house with my family. So confusing. I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift, breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car. Fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. This reminds me of when I was in dance as a little girl. I remember throwing my dance shoe over my shoulder as I was getting ready in my room. When I turned around to grab it I couldn't find it anywhere. My mum and I searched for 10 minutes before we decided to leave without the shoe so we wouldn't be too late to practice. We found the slipper in my winter boot by the porch just as we were leaving, which was across the house from where I was when I tossed my slipper. 10 millimeters. That happens all the time. Is this a phenomenon I haven't heard about? Gave me freaking chills, because I have a set in the garage hanging on the wall missing only the 10mm. Apparently it's an ongoing joke that 10mm sockets always go missing. I didn't realize this wasn't just a me thing until I started seeing the memes about it. It's a universal truth. My friend Sarah was in a nightclub, drunk off her face, when she got an overwhelming urge to tell a total stranger that her leg hurts. Edit. It didn't. All a bit strange, she ignores it, but it doesn't stop, so she walks up to this guy and says, "I know this is crazy, but I've got a huge urge to tell you my leg hurts." "I know that's crazy." Again. "Sorry." But he bursts into tears. Turns out his dad had just died and they made a pact before that if there was an afterlife he would get a message to him saying a totally random phrase, so there could be no mistakes, which they decided was "I've hurt my leg." Man, that's wicked cool. It's also wicked sad. Gives me chills to this day. And her. What the?